We are raised together with Christ, and we sit in heavenly places. God of one blood has made all nations of men to dwell on the face of the earth, and he has appointed their times and the bounds of their inhabitation. Oh, magnify the Lord with me, and let us exalt his name together.
I will bless the Lord at all times. His praise shall continually be in my mouth. My soul shall make a boast in the Lord. The humble shall hear thereof and be glad. O magnify the Lord with me, and let us exalt his name. Hello, I'm Pastor Jimmy Stevens of the New Covenant Faith Baptist Church here in the beautiful city of Lake Charles, Louisiana. Well, this is the day the Lord has made, and we do rejoice. We are glad in it. We are thankful to God, being clothed in our right mind, a portion of our health and strength. And yes, we are thankful to God. Well, we want to thank you for chiming in for this breaking news special. We are going to break in on our series, Walking in God's Vision for Breaking News. You have heard by now of the great news of the pivotal decision of the George Floyd trial. It is pivotal. We believe that it is the beginning of a new day in the United States of America. And so our topic today is justice for George. And the justice for George is justice for all of God's people, especially African Americans here in the United States of America. Well, I'm excited to have a very special guest with me today, Brother Donald Thomas,
Yes, sir.
Washington, Maryland,
Yes, sir.
1993.
Yes, sir.
They tell me the Indians are just awesome.
They told you right. They told you right.
Well, Donald, we are so glad to have you. I am very inspired by your work over the years.
Thank you.
I look at your work as an advocate in Lake Charles, Louisiana.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
From bringing in entertainment to our young people and to our community, from actually activism to making this city a better city. And we're thankful. I really believe that you are not just a leader of your own generation, but that you are one of the pillars of Lake Charles, Louisiana. And we are so glad to have you to come and just share. We're going to be talking about several things that you're doing. We're going to be talking about the George Floyd trial and the things that we believe that God is doing through the justice system, as well as what God is doing to make this world a little bit better.
Yes. Yes.
Well, Donald, in May 25th, 2020, George Floyd was murdered on the streets of Minneapolis, Minnesota. Officer Derek Chauvin placed his knee on George's neck 9 minutes and 29 seconds. He was pleading for his life. He was crying, "I can't breathe." He did not remove his knee. He kept it there until every ounce of life was taken from him. There was bystanders there watching, pleading also. It was a cry for humanity. But something happened that day. It triggered protests. 2,000 cities in the United States, 60 countries across racial lines, blacks, whites, Asians, brown, you name it, across denominational lines. A tremendous outpour for justice. And I noticed that Lake Charles, Louisiana was involved. The stats say between 13 million and 26 million people around the world participated in the protest rallies. I attended our rally here in Lake Charles, and you were very instrumental, if not the leader, of bringing this rally together. Tell us how the Lord placed this on your heart.
So what happened was, and during that time, we were in the middle of the pandemic. So everybody had been quarantining. We were locked in our homes, away from our jobs during that time. We were also in the midst of the Trump administration. So the world, the country was just divided. It's just a lot of division. There's a lot going on globally. And when George Floyd happened, it was just like, how much more could we take? You know, how much more could happen? And it was something different about George Floyd. You know, we've seen the videos from past incidents with police brutality and police killings, but it was something about the George Floyd one that you couldn't, like, no one could excuse it. You couldn't look away. You couldn't walk away from it. And after seeing that video, like, it left me drained. It left me drained. And I was sitting at home one night, and I was watching the global movement. And like every day was on the news every day. And I was watching a news clip from Japan. And the organizer of the rally in Japan, he couldn't speak any English. He knew 5 words in English: George Floyd, Black Lives Matter. And when you watch people in Japan who were affected by something in the States to react so aggressively and so passionately to, like, I was like, what do we do? Like, what do we do? I felt helpless. So my wife told me, she said, you should just do something. Just do something. And so I just basically, I reached out to somebody to make a flyer. I just picked the location and I just put it out there. Like on the Thursday night, Friday morning I wake up and the rally was on a Sunday. And so we had like 3 days before the rally and he just started kind of taking a life of his own.
I arrived maybe 10 minutes before the rally officially kicked off. I was completely flabbergasted in that it seemed like thousands of people out there from all races as well from Lake Charles, Louisiana.
Right.
Did you sense the same thing? Did you feel that the community would rally across racial lines?
You know, I wasn't sure at first. Like I figured we'd have some sort of a response in our own communities. And so over the 3 days leading up to the rally, and at that time I was getting all kind of inboxes from, saying from other races, like giving me like death threats and all kind of just crazy talk. And I was also getting like inboxes from our own people who were afraid of going out because they had saw stuff in some of these other groups, things people were posting, so they were afraid. And so I was real like just kind of worried about people's safety, just how it was going to turn out, any conflicts, whatever. But the night before the rally, about midnight, my phone rings, and it was like a little white girl from Westlake High School. She said, "Me and my friends want to attend the rally, and my mom wants to know, will we be safe?" And that phone call was like, that's it. It was like confirmation for me, because for a 16-year-old white girl from Westlake to want to participate, we knew we had something that was bigger than ourselves.
You said it well, bigger than ourselves. We're talking about our white pastor brothers, black pastor brothers, pastors that were of the Mexican persuasion, and signs to see this bouquet of humanity, if you will, this rainbow coalition. What were some of the things that transpired at the rally of Lake Charles?
So when we talk about the racial lines, we had like a couple of Samoan families that were there, a lot of Mexican residents that were there, a lot of white residents that were there. Of course, our own people were there, and even like our Indian and our Arabian community, they came out. They was donating water and supplies, and whatever. People like really kind of came together because this was not only a race issue, but it was a humanity issue. And God, like, to me, God really moved in that situation because it allowed people a chance to get what they felt out. It was more of a surrender, and then we just had what we had.
I tell you what, we praise God. There was no violence. There was no type of unrest. There was no type of fighting. It was a release and blessing across denominational lines. I don't know if I've ever seen a moment like that in Lake Charles, Louisiana. I am a resident of Lake Charles. I've been pastoring over 30 years, but I'm talking about an entire community coming together. I think Lake Charles rally was like all of the rest of rallies around the United States. There is a hunger for unity. There's a hunger for justice. As a young leader here in our community, do you think there is a hunger for justice?
Most definitely. I think the negative is publicized so much. If you pick up your phone, you can find negativity readily available. But the positivity is few and far between, or so it seems. But if you seek out the positivity, you seek out justice, it is there to be found. Like one thing about the rally that really humbled me was like even as we united for justice, we united in prayer. Like we united in emotion. We united in optimism. We united in hope. So I think it was so much good, so much cohesiveness that it gave me a lot of optimism about the future of the city.
Well, I tell you what, I really believe that God has raised up the Black Lives Matter. And it's not just our people of African descent that was marching. We're talking about young people from every ethnicity, every branch. I noticed you mentioned one of the prayers, your speakers. One of the speakers was Pastor E.J. Kemper, and he said something that stuck with me. All of the speakers were outstanding. But he mentioned to the crowd assembled, he said, we are here to protest, to rally for justice for George Floyd. But he says, always remember that protests must give away to policy.
Yes.
Other words, laws and legislation. And I was just studying today and reading on the George Floyd Justice Policing Act 2021. It has already passed in the United States Congress, and now the Senate must work on that and vote on that. There needs to be reform in policing in the United States of America. Now let me say this, we have great policemen around the world, in my opinion, doing a great job, but there are some bad apples. Do you agree with that?
Most definitely, most definitely. You know, what my belief is when it comes to that is we work in a system, they work in a system that protects them. And so what you have is, you have a system of policing that there is no accountability when it comes to policing. Police can do whatever they want, whether it's right or wrong, whether it's intentional or unintentional, but they're always protected. When you say justice versus accountability, justice is someone laying blame to someone else. Accountability, by definition, is being responsible for, being held liable for, answerability. If no one is answering, no one is held liable, no one is held responsible, you don't have accountability.
The Bible talks about accountability. Jesus talked about accountability. And without accountability down in any society, that society will be weak. It's interesting, you mentioned accountability because Attorney General Keith Ellison of Minnesota, who prosecuted the case against Derek Chauvin, after the guilty verdict on all three charges, he went to the mic with his team and he said these words, "Today we've gotten justice and accountability." He says no one is beneath the law, no one should be above the law. And so with this accountability, with the reforms, the changes that must be done in this act, I believe that the community, policing and the black community can have a better relationship. How you feel about that?
I believe that strongly. And accountability is so important because what always gets me when these things happen is the police officer will get off of criminal charges, but the family will receive money. Like how can they be liable for money but not accountable in their actions? Like even if you drive a car, we have liability insurance. They only pay a liability policy when they say, hey, you're at fault, you're responsible for this. But even the insurance company, if you keep on getting an accident, they're going to either raise your premium or eventually drop you. There's going to be a consequence for your actions. Why don't we have that same accountability in our police force?
We've been having killing of black and brown men for many years. This could be the start of a new day in policing and the healing that is much needed across America. I noticed that you are doing something here in Lake Charles with this whole thing of accountability. Tell us about that.
So we just recently held a men's panel discussion. It was me, Brother Marcus Jackson, Reverend Kemper, Brother Jerry Jones, Brother Brandon McSeal, and Brother Kenan Henry. We held an accountability panel. And it was just basically called Black Men Talk Accountability. We talked about black men being accountable in their homes, in their families, and in their churches. And it was like a really good conversation. We went to air it in June. It was just a really deep and honest and transparent conversation about us holding ourselves accountable.
I think that's well said, well needed. Give us those 3 points again. Accountable in your home.
In your home.
Yes.
In your communities, and in your churches.
I think those 3 areas are the pivotal areas if there is going to be strengthen our community. Tell me about something that's also coming up that you're doing at Hubert Park.
So on Sunday, May 30th, from 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. at Hubert Park, we have what's called roll call. It's a men's day barbecue in the park. The theme behind the roll call is, I call it roll call because just like when you were in school, when they call roll, you're going to be marked absent or present. So I made a roll call to men of all ages, races, and backgrounds to be present amongst each other, as iron sharpens iron, to be present in our communities, to be present in the lives of our younger boys, and to take our role as leaders. As men who are called to lead our household, to lead and protect our communities. And I think in these days we're missing that. Like you look online, a lot of times you see men acting all kind of ways. Like we're sensitive, we're offended by every little thing. We're not being men, we're not being masculine, we're not being leaders, we're not having a standard. Like you look at the civil rights movements, Martin Luther King, Dr. Abernathy, those guys were very esteemed, they were educated, they were sophisticated, they walked with a certain persona, and you had to respect them. They demanded respect by the way they moved. And I think these days we don't see that a lot. I think a lot of negativity is glorified. So it's just men holding each other accountable and getting back to being men of standard.
I tell you, one of the great pictures that I liked during the civil rights movement were the signs where you had black men holding up, "I am a man," and rising up, fighting for justice and freedom. And I really believe that America is experiencing a third reconstruction. Pastor Barber, who is the leader of the Poorest People campaign, he's the new leader. That was the last thing that Dr. King was going to do before his assassination. And he talks about America, that America is going through a reckoning. America is going through the third reconstruction. The first reconstruction was 1865 to 1877. The second one was the civil rights movement. And right now, with all that we see, justice, protest, equity, the fight for equity and justice is a time of reckoning in the United States. Do you see something of a reckoning, a reconstruction in America?
Yes, if you look across the board in every area of America, like even with Kamala Harris now being the first female black vice president, we're coming off of Barack having 2 terms as a black president, like this George Floyd verdict, things are changing. There's an evident shift in the atmosphere. Things are getting shifted, they're getting stirred up, they're getting shaken, and you're going to either be on one side of the fence or the other. You have to make a choice. If you're not left to just straddle the fence anymore. And as the world progresses, you're going to either progress with it or be left behind. And you see the ones who are dead set on their old mindsets. They're kicking and screaming now for their ways. Like they'll say anything because they know their time is short. And it won't be an easy transition, but I think it's definitely transitioning.
2050. All of the sociologists say that there will be a change. The minority race will become the majority race.
Right.
And I think of some of the tensions that we see, some of the things that went down January the 6th with the insurrection and this whole hate and bigotry that we're seeing in our nation is fighting against change that will be inevitable.
Right.
And I think that our men, and I'm glad that young men as yourself and other men across the nation as well as women is working conferences, building up, because we have to be in the midst of this great reckoning, this new thing that God is doing. Let's get back to George Floyd's trial. One of the things that I was very impressed with, his family, the Floyd family. I'm talking about his brothers, his sisters. Did you notice that they're deeply spiritual people?
Very.
What did you notice about them?
I think it's not coincidental that they would be the way they were. given the burden they have to carry, God give those battles to people who are qualified to fight those battles. So I think they were the kind of family they needed to be to survive what they went through. Imagine having the whole globe, the whole world looking at you. But biblically, the Bible tells us that, God will, he's going to get the glory.
Yes.
He's going to get the glory.
He's going to get all of the glory. And we talking about George Floyd's brother saying, I was praying, and God said this, and God strengthened me. His sisters talking about God strengthened me. And even his little daughter, out of the mouth of babes and sucklings, a prophetic word came out when she spoke to, at that time, candidate Joe Biden. My daddy has changed the world.
Right.
You think this George Floyd incident has changed the world?
I think so. I've never in my lifetime seen a movement that was global. There was people in Australia, New Zealand, even Russia protesting on behalf of this incident. I've never in my lifetime seen anything global such as this.
Well, even the civil rights movement in America wasn't global. It was a American movement for civil rights, for the enhancement of black people, for their rightful place. But this was global. Donald, I had the great privilege, my associate and I, and one of our laymen, my associate, Minister Jalen Martin, as well as Brother John Jones, a member of our church, we had the privilege of going to the funeral.
Wow.
And even though it was a sad situation, yet I left away with a lot of hope and joy, seeing the unity, seeing the rappers there, and the preachers and civil rights leaders and entertainers and just the community, and not just the black community. Letters from all over the world. They are building buildings and naming things on behalf of George Floyd. I think an incredible reconciliation, incredible revival, if you will, is going forth. Do you see that what took place on yesterday with the verdict, that this is something that's going to cause permanent change, or do you think this is just change for the moment?
No, I think honestly in my heart and in my spirit, I really feel like this is real change. Because you see people have come out of their comfort, their comfortable spaces. The preachers are from behind the pulpits and outside their four walls. The rappers are away from their concerts and their studios. The white people are away from their suburban neighborhoods. People are outside their comfort zones for a united cause. When people are willing to step outside their comfort zone and be uncomfortable, discomfort is always a leading cause of change. And for people to willingly be uncomfortable, I think it's definitely changed.
Well said. That cannot be any change without tension.
Right.
That cannot be any change without conflict. That cannot be any change without pain. And God has always used tragedy to bring forth triumph.
Right.
And I believe with all that we have seen, did you recognize the last few days there's more killings?
Yes.
What do you think is happening?
It's just how I mentioned earlier, the people who are one way are going on kicking and screaming. We have to realize that we're not just in a natural battle, we're in a spiritual battle, in spiritual warfare. The devil knows what's happening. He sees what's taking place. He sees his kingdom being affected. And so he's working overtime because he knows his time is short. Whenever you have good is only recognized and acknowledged by the contrast to the evil, its evil counterpart. When you see good taking place on that level, the devil has to continuously work on his side to counteract that. And that's what you're facing.
That's a prophetic word. Let me tell you why. At the funeral, the minister, Al Sharpton, that was his text. We do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but principalities and powers and rulers of darkness and spiritual wickedness in high places. And so he dealt with what you just said. This movement is a spiritual battle, and the enemy is doing all that he can to stop it from manifesting, but it's going to manifest because God said it's going to manifest.
And one thing I want to point out, when you say spiritual, it's just that, spiritual, not religious. It's a spiritual warfare. A lot of times we think that you have to be in a certain church to believe a certain thing. Everyone is spiritual. You can't avoid it. So when you're in a spiritual warfare, it's not because you're a member of a certain church or you know so much scripture. It's just you're alive in God's kingdom and you're fighting spiritual warfare whether you want to or not.
Yeah, well, we are body, soul, and spirit. We have a spiritual part of us. And when we give our life to Jesus, He gives us the new birth experience. This is very interesting. I'm glad to be alive. I really am. I'm glad to be alive to see some things that I never thought I would see.
Right.
Negative as well as positive. Also to see the Don Lemons and the Laura Coates and the Joey Jacksons and people of color on the national stage so articulate as lawyers and prosecutors. How does that make you feel?
For me, it's very inspiring. It's very inspiring, and it gives me a lot of hope, right? And it's also it's very evident about the progress that we made. You know, like even like Benjamin Crump. Like Crump is every case that comes out, you see, he's front and center, and he's the lawyer now, and he reminds me of Johnny Cochran back in the day, and like he's not letting up on him. He's really on him, and he's really like doing his job, and they're afraid to see him when he shows up. Like he's really about his business. So we definitely want to support that brother. And like I say, it's just inspiring. It's just good to see. It's good to see.
It's great to see. And one thing I think African Americans, I think in this country, we was able to endure because of our connection to God, our love to God. And in the midst of these social changes, as a pastor, my prayer is that we will come back to God as a people. As God is working out these social things, what do you think would happen? I'm talking about as a people, that we come back to God. I'm talking about back to God, worshiping God in the Word, living by the Scriptures. I think that a spiritual revival would take place.
Yes, most definitely. And I think, honestly, the responsibility is a two-part responsibility. It's always going to be the individual's responsibility to want and desire to make the change. But I think as the church and the disciples of Christ, it's our responsibility to the same way as people get out their comfort zones for this cause, we have to get out our comfort zones and get in unfamiliar places, because they're not going to just walk in on their own. Like we have to really get out and seek them out and show them genuine love. Not judgment, but genuine love. And I think at the end of the day, love conquers all. One of the things I saw today was the little girl who was at the store with her family, and she filmed the incident. If it had not been for her filming the incident, we don't know where this would have ended up. And when I looked at the video of the little girl in the store and the encounter with George Floyd and her filming the incident, on her shirt it said love. And I just thought it was very significant.
Well, you're getting in all my sermon, brother.
Hey, man.
Because I'm working on a message. Love conquers all. Love conquers hate. And you mentioned something about even the body of Christ. We're going to have to get out of our comfort zone.
Yes.
Especially winning the millennials and generation X, Y, and Z. It cannot be a judgmental approach to evangelism. It must be a approach that Jesus taught us, and that is the approach of His love. And I believe with that, if we love one another as Christ has taught us how to love, this nation and this world can be a better place.
I saw a little kid on TV the other day. He said, "Your church hat don't make you more saved than my tattoos make me evil." And I was like, you did on it, brother. You did on it.
Well, I tell you what, Even with tattoos, God can save,
Almost definitely.
God can deliver, God can set free, and we're going to have to love everybody, tattoos and all. Tell us again about the work you're doing with accountability, Men Talk, and when will that be ready for the people to receive it and see it, and where are you going to release that?
So we're going to release it on the Black Heritage Festival page sometime in June. It's being edited now, and it's going to release in sometime in June on the Black Heritage Festival of Louisiana social media pages and website.
Very good. I'm going to be looking forward to that, and we want everybody to be looking forward to that. This young advocate, I call him an advocate, great leader in our community, Donald Thomas, is doing some great things. And one of the things that is coming up on Black Heritage Facebook page is going to be Men Talk. It's going to be released in just a couple of more weeks. Brother Donald, also tell us before we leave about what you're doing with the program at the Hubert Park. Give us the name of the program. You mentioned that this is for men across all lines.
Right. So I want to give everybody who's watching this a personal invitation. We're inviting all men of all ages, races, and backgrounds. If you're a single mom, just drop your son off. We want to take care of him. We want to see about him. We want to invite all men. Men, come out. It's free. We want to have barbecue, games, activities. We want to have a day of fellowship, networking, and fun. We want to just get men together and in proximity to one another to hold each other accountable and just meet a brother who doesn't look like you, a brother that you don't know, a brother who might have a different background from you, and just create those relationships organically and naturally. So I invite every brother on the sound of my voice who's viewing this today to come out. If you want to donate or support, or if you want to come out and barbecue, reach out to me. My number is 337-309-4720. We would love to see you there. I'd love to have you there.
Well, this has been Pastor Jimmy Stevens. I've really enjoyed this conversation with, again, one of our, I call him an advocate of change. One of our leaders in the community of Lake Charles, Louisiana, Southwest Louisiana. The proof is in the pudding. What I mean by that, this brother is not only articulating, but he's on the ground. He's on the battlefield. He has been leading and providing some wonderful things. You heard about what's coming up. You heard about justice, not only for George Floyd. We thank God for that justice, but we're looking for that day when we're going to live out our creed. Liberty and justice for all, for everyone. Our prayer is that there will be more transparency, there will be better training, there will be laws that is going to help to enhance policing in the United States of America, and that black men, brown men, black women, black girls, all of us can walk where we desire to walk. We can do things honestly and with dignity and grace and integrity, and that this world will be a better world. Well, I want to leave you with Micah 6:8. And the prophet asks the question, what does the Lord require? And the prophet says there are three things the Lord requires. First of all, to walk in justice, to walk justly. We desire and we want and we demand a just society. And then to love mercy, and then finally to walk humbly with your God. Are you in love with justice? Are you in love with mercy? And are you walking humbly with your God? Let me just give you what is going on here at the New Covenant Church. We're getting ready for a Park and Praise on May the 2nd at 9:30 on our church campus, 2233 12th Street, Lake Charles, Louisiana. There will be proclamation, praise. We will be serving the Lord's Supper, And I have a very special guest, Minister Richard from Lafayette. He will be coming with his saxophone and praise. And we are just anticipating a move of the Lord as well as great fellowship and blessing. Brother Donald, I'm going to give you the final word. Maybe you just want to just say something to our audience again, what you are doing, and maybe say something to the Floyd family.
Okay. Well, first off, I want to say to the Floyd family that we are still praying for you and we're still with you. We are so glad about the verdict, but even with the verdict, and it's a big step, but we still weep for George, because that won't bring him back. So our hearts are going to be continually with you to give you that comfort and peace as you move forward. But know that God gave this battle to you guys, and you guys are walking it exceptionally. To the people, we're in the midst of change. The atmosphere is shifting. And a lot of times when I'm involved, they say that you're a community leader. A leader, by definition, means to be responsible for. We are all a leader. Look to your left, look to your right, look in front of you, look behind you. There's a child, a church member, a family member, a co-worker, a stranger that you can be responsible for, that you can give the word of God to, that you can help. And being responsible for someone besides yourself makes you a leader. Continue to be a leader.
Amen. You've got that word. Continue to be a leader. You be responsible for somebody and help somebody as you pass away. This has been a great day. We've enjoyed New Covenant, our church family. We are looking for you on May the 2nd. Your tithes, your offerings. Our office is still open. Plant your seed, give as God has placed on your heart. The Bible says, give, it shall be given. Good measure, pressed down, shaken together, running over, shall men give unto your bosom. Not only give of your treasure, but give your time as well as your talents. Again, this has been Pastor Jimmy Stevens along with Donald Thomas saying to you, justice for all.